Hello children, welcome you all again to our English class, Her Triumph of Surgery by James Herriot. Okay, so in the last three parts we have seen that our Tricki is getting better and the doctor just informed its owner, Mrs. Pumphrey, that he is well doing and also he is out of danger, isn't it? And what we have seen there is, after hearing this, our Pumphrey is very happy and she thought that Tricki might have gone through a major medical treatment, so he needs what? He needs help, isn't it? And the last class we have seen that she started sending eggs, then wine, everything to foster our Tricki, and also to enrich the blood. She thought of sending the wine also, isn't it? Anyhow, she was very much worried about Tricki, and it seems that she can't even find any sort of happiness as long as Tricki is here in the hospital, isn't it? But what we see from the part of doctor and the rest of the staff in the hospital, they really make use of this time, isn't it? How? Because here it says in the last paragraph that we have seen in the last classes, it was to enrich Tricki's blood. Lunch became a ceremonial occasion with 2 glasses of wine before and several during the meal, isn't it? So what we have seen there is our doctor along with the rest of the staff members in the hospital really enjoy the breakfast, really celebrate the lunch by adding what? Wine along with the lunch, isn't it? So that's why it says that lunch become a ceremonial occasion. So, and anyhow, our doctor was very happy to have Tricki in the hospital along with the things or the food provided by its owner also, isn't it? Now, for today's portion, I want all my children to take your textbook, page number 5, first paragraph onwards. Okay? I think today we can conclude or get over this lesson by today's portion. Okay? Be with me. Take your textbook, page number 5. Okay? I'm reading. You have to look in your textbook and listen carefully. We could hardly believe it when the brandy came to put our final edge on Tricki's constitution. For a few nights, the fine spirit was rolled around, inhaled, and reverently drunk. So, what here the doctor says here is, the narrator says here is, last paragraph, page number 4, last paragraph, as I told you, they got 2 eggs for breakfast and bottles of wine began to arrive, and the real possibilities of situation began to dawn on the household. That means, for Tricki's happiness, she started sending all these things. And who was really enjoying this? The doctor with the rest of the staff members. And now he understood that these were the things which was given to Tricki by whom? Tricki by Mrs. Pumphrey, isn't it? So that may be one of the cause for making or to see that our Tricki was in such a bloated sausage situation, isn't it? He is unable to walk. He was so tired. He can't concentrate on anything. And he understood that. That's why it says that we could hardly believe. What do you mean by that? We could hardly believe. It is impossible for us to believe that when the brandy came. Okay? In order to give us sustainability and strenuous strength. Now, apart from the wine, she thought of sending what? Brandy also. That too for whom? That too for the dog. Can you imagine a pet lover is just providing wine, brandy, eggs, all these things for whom? All these things for Tricki. And she is actually spending a lot of money for the sake of this Tricki. And already we have seen that she is very spendthrift with connection with Tricki. What are the things that she already gave to him? Chocolate cake, isn't it? Then cream cake, everything, all the sweets. Along with that, what? Brandy, wine and eggs also. So the doctor says that it's very hard for us to believe when the brandy came to put a final edge of Tricki's constitution. That means these were the things that Tricki were used to eat or drink, which was given by Mrs. Pumphrey. They can't believe this one. Okay. Anyhow, this is some of the menus that Mrs. Pumphrey used to give to Tricki. For a few nights, the fine spirit was rolled around, inhaled, and reverently run. Now, these two lines says that actually, we are very happy that she gave all these things to Tricki, because for few nights we were in good, happy spirit because we enjoyed the wine, we enjoyed the brandy, the eggs daily, isn't it? So we used to smell it reverently. What is that? Inhale means to smell reverently. Reverently means what? With much solemnity, with divinity. They used to smell this one and have this brandy and wine after the lunch, before going to bed, and for the breakfast they have eggs also, isn't it? So here the next paragraph says that they were days of deep content, starting well with extra eggs in the morning, improved and sustained by the midday wine, and finishing luxuriously round the fire with brandy. See, these were the days of this doctor along with the rest of the staff, or maybe his assistant, isn't it, in the hospital. How it starts? Starting well with, though they were the days of deep content. Content means extreme happiness or satisfaction. Why? Because we are starting each day with what? Extra egg. Actually, this egg is supposed to be given to whom? Given to Tricki. But who is eating all these things? Doctor as well as his assistant, isn't it? And extra egg in the morning for breakfast, and improved and sustained by the midday wine. After the lunch, they have what? They have cups of wine, isn't it? And finishing luxuriously around the fire with brandy. So before going to bed, enjoying the day, the end of the day, sitting in front of what? The fire with what? Taking brandy. So altogether, everything was perfect. So what happened? So they were tempted. The next paragraph says that it was a temptation to keep Tricki on a permanent guest. But I knew Mrs. Pumphrey was suffering, and after a fortnight felt compelled to phone and tell her that the little dog had recovered and was awaiting collection. So anyhow, this was one of the reasons why he thought of keeping Tricki as a permanent guest. Actually, the plan of doctor is to keep Tricki as a permanent guest. Why? To enjoy what all things? To enjoy the wine, brandy, and eggs daily. But what is the other thing? As he thought of like this, what happened? He thought that actually I promised Mrs. Pumphrey for a fortnight to keep a Tricki in the hospital. So anyhow, he just imagined the situation of Tricki. So Mrs. Pumphrey. Already we have seen the situation in that home when Tricki was taken away by the doctor, because you know that along with the owner, the rest of the staff members, the maids, everyone was very sorrow in missing our Tricki, isn't it? So he very clearly knows that it was very hard for our lady to withstand without her favorite pet dog, Tricki. So he was compelled to phone her and tell that the little dog has recovered and was awaiting collection. So anyhow, after 2 weeks, he made a phone call to Mrs. Pumphrey, who was suffering with the thought of Tricki, telling that, your dog is fine. Now you can come and collect him at any time, isn't it? He felt regretted for keeping Tricki for the happiness. Or actually, we have seen that he was not given any medicine, isn't it? From the day he was brought to this hospital, he was given only what? Liters of water, not even food. Only after the 3rd day he was given some food. Now it's going to be 2 weeks. In these 2 weeks or 1 week, the doctor and his assistant or the staff are just enjoying the food of our Tricki. And this may be the food, maybe the wine, brandy and eggs tempted. What is tempted? Provoked our doctor to keep our Tricki there as a guest so that they can enjoy a sumptuous food, isn't it? And anyhow, he felt regretted for keeping Tricki anymore for their happiness of drinks and eggs. He thought of calling Mrs. Pumphrey, who was suffering with the thought of Tricki. Okay, so he called her and said that your dog is getting better and he had recovered and was awaiting collection. Awaiting collection means you can come and collect him at any time. Okay, let's see the next paragraph. Within minutes, about 30 feet of gleaming black metal drew up outside the surgery. The chauffeur opened the door and I could just make out the figure of Mrs. Pumphrey almost lost in interior. Her hands were tightly clasped in front of her. Her lips trembled. Oh, Mrs. Herriot, do tell me the truth. Is he really better? So what happened? After making a phone call, here it says that within minutes, within no time, who came there? Mrs. Pumphrey came there. And she is very anxious to hear about our Tricki also. That's where it says that within minutes, about 30 feet of gleaming black metal drew up. What is that? 30 feet of gleaming black metal. That is the car. Okay? And the car of Mrs. Pumphrey just stopped in front of the hospital. Okay? And drew up outside. The drew up means was now stopped outside the surgery. And the chauffeur means whom? A person who drives the car. Especially for rich people, they have a driver to drive the car. So here the chauffeur means a person who drives the car for rich person. Okay, I think the meaning is given. The next page, no. Okay, so anyhow, chauffeur opened the door and I could just make a run. The doctor saw who was sitting inside the car. Our owner of Tricki is seated inside the car. She was seated inside the car, and how she is sitting with her hands tightly clasped in front of her. You know how you sit when you are highly tensed, when you are asked to present before some higher personality, especially for students, when you are said that you are wanted by the principal or you are called by someone, especially at the very instant you feel tense. Oh, for what reason? Isn't it? Just like when she is so tensed about hearing Tricki's condition. Actually, she knows that it's very hard for Tricki to come up in such a healthy manner, isn't it? Because when she was ready to admit our Tricki in this hospital, he was just looking like a bloated sausage, isn't it? Now it's very hard, and she was just imagining whether the doctor said his truth or not, isn't it? And as soon as the car reached in front of the hospital, doctor saw our Mrs. Pumphrey seated inside the car with her hands grasped together tightly with one onto another, and her lips trembled, and she was asking, after seeing the doctor, oh, Mrs. Herriot, do tell me the truth. Is he really better? She was very much concerned about and anxious to know about the condition of our Tricki. And she can't even believe what the doctor said. And the doctor says that, yes, he is fine. There's no need for you to get out of the car. I'll go and fetch him. So the doctor said, okay, you be there. I know that you are highly tensed. Be seated inside your car. I'll just get him. Fetch means I'll bring him. Okay, I'll just go and fetch him. I'll bring him. Okay. Then I walked through the house into the garden. A mass of dogs were hurtling round and round the lawn, and in the midst, ears flapping, tail waving, was the little golden figure of Tricki. In 2 weeks, he had been transformed into a lithe, hard-muscled animal, and he was keeping up well with the pack, stretching out in great bounds, his chest almost brushing the ground. So what happened? So when the doctor went to collect, or when the doctor went to take our Tricki to Mrs. Pumphrey, we see that I walked through the house into the garden. Because already we have seen that these dogs were sent out in the garden, the lawn, for play, isn't it? So a mass of dogs were hurtling round and round the lawn, and in their midst, so many dogs were there. They were all set free in the lawn just to play and enjoy the time, for doing exercise, for running all around, to reduce the weight of the body, isn't it? And in between, who is there? A Tricki, and how he was seen, ears flapping, tails wagging, and little golden was the little golden figure of Tricki. Okay, the color of Tricki is golden color, golden brown color. So he was just flapping with his ears, or just shaking his ears, and the tail was just waving when he saw the doctor. And I was also very happy, because you see that last class you have seen the Tricki just enjoying each moment in this hospital, running around with the rest of the dogs, at night hunting in the old hen's cottage and all, and he was very happy, isn't it? So he went there, and now in 2 weeks, what happened? The size or the physical specimen of our Tricki has changed into a lathe. What is that lathe? Lathe means thin, not supple enough. Okay, just like a healthy dog. Okay, then and hard muscled animal. He was keeping up well with the pack. Well with the pack means other dogs. Well with the pack means group of dogs. It's a pack. Okay, stretching out in general bounds, his chest almost brushing the ground. He was just running all around, enjoying with the flapping of ears, and he was just moving all around, and he was very happy to see. I carried him back along the passage to the front of the house. The chauffeur was still holding the car open when Tricki saw his mistress. He took off from my arms in a tremendous leap and sailed into Mrs. Pumphrey's lap. She gave a startled "ooh" and then had to defend herself as he swam over her, licking her face and barking. So what happened? We have seen that Tricki was totally recovered, and as per the information, our owner of the Tricki came here, and he was ready to be collected from the hospital. We have seen that she is very anxious to hear about, isn't it? And when the doctor met our lady, he told that you may be seated inside the car. I'll come with dog. So the doctor came with the dog to the car. Inside the car, who is sitting? Mrs. Pumphrey is sitting. I carried him back along the passage to the front of the house. Actually, he was playing where? Playing in the lawn with the rest of the dogs, isn't it? From there, he carried him back along the passage to the front of the house. The chauffeur was still holding the car open, because who is seated inside? See the picture given in your textbook. Okay, so Mrs. Pumphrey is seated inside the car, and when Tricki saw his mistress, he took off from my arms. Actually, this dog was carried over by doctor to give it to Mrs. Pumphrey. So as soon as Miss Tricki saw his mistress seated inside the car, what happened? He took off from my arms. What is the meaning of took off? He jumped, and he was just leaping, isn't it? He just was very happy to meet his mistress, and he jumped and sailed into Mrs. Pumphrey's lap. So that we can see that our dog is also very lovable to whom? Very lovable to Mrs. Pumphrey. That may be one of the reasons why Mrs. Pumphrey was also very sad and sorrowful, disappointed when she need to give this Tricki in this hospital for 2 weeks, isn't it? So, and as soon as the dog saw her, he just jumped off from the doctor's arm and sailed. Sailed means flown into Mrs. Pumphrey's lap. She gave a startled means what? Surprising cry. That means after a long time, 2 weeks, isn't it? After 2 weeks, she is just meeting this Tricki, and she said, "Oh," and then had to defend herself as she warmed over her, licking her face and barking. So the dog was expressing his what? Happiness, isn't it? He was just expressing his happiness. See the picture, the reaction of meeting its owner. He jumped from the doctor's arm, sailed into Mrs. Pumphrey's lap, and he started licking her face and roaming around inside the car with great excitement. And we see that she had to defend. What is defend? Protect herself from the, what is that? The happiness of the dog. The happiness what is that? This dog may be roaming around her body. So she was just covering her face or trying to protect herself from the emotion of the dog. Okay, she was just trying to swim over here, licking her face and barking. He was also asking some questions. Where were you all these days? Why can't you come and meet me at least once in a week? Isn't it? All the worries and the things may be exchanged by the dogs also, isn't it? So anyhow, next paragraph. During the excitement, I helped the chauffeur to bring out the beds, toys, cushions, cot, bowls, and none of which had been used. As the car moved away, Mrs. Pumphrey leaned out of the car window. Tears shone in her eyes, her lips trembled. Oh, Mrs. Herriot, she cried, how can I ever thank you? This is a time of surgery. So what we see that is, already we have seen that when this Tricki was sent to this hospital, loads of things were given with him. What is that? Cots, toys, cushions, bowls, everything was given, beds. But the doctor says that specifically it was said here, none of these were used. Actually, separate beds, separate things with the rest of the dog. He was just moving and he was just enjoying his days. All these things were not at all used by them. So, and doctor helped the chauffeur to take back all the things which was given along with this Tricki. Okay, anyhow, Tricki was now along with his mistress, and now she was also very happy. And on the way back to their home, we see that our mistress, Mrs. Pumphrey, just leaned out of the window of the car. Tears were just flowing from her eyes and her lips because of extreme happiness. She was overwhelmed with joy and happiness, and she said, how can I ever thank you? Because she never expected that this dog will get into such a conditioned one, because he can't even get up. He was always lying on the mat, isn't it? And he was not eating anything for days. And Mrs. Pumphrey might have thought that soon my dog will die, isn't it? Now she could see that the dog in full health, running with great of happiness, barking and showing happiness, isn't it? All these things. So she was very happy, and the dog was also very happy to go back. Because why? Because he was just enjoying luxurious things in his home. In this surgery, he was just sharing with the things of other dogs, isn't it? So anyhow, the dog was also very happy to be back with its mistress. So this is what, and with overwhelmed with joy and happiness, Mrs. Pumphrey calls it a triumph of surgery. And she thought that the doctor might have given what? Good medicinal treatment, and might have done some super special things in order to retain the health of our Tricki. So she calls it a triumph. Triumph means what? A victory of surgery. Okay, this is the story of a triumph of surgery. Okay, so I think you understood the lesson, a triumph of surgery. Okay, so what we have seen today is a doctor's plan for keeping this Tricki as a permanent guest is because they wanted to enjoy the wine, brandy and eggs daily. But in between, he felt so regretted for keeping this Tricki, as Mrs. Pumphrey was so disappointed for not having Tricki with them. Anyhow, he informed Pumphrey that he has recovered and ready to be collected from the hospital. But we see that Mrs. Pumphrey was very hard to believe this. But when she came to meet, it was just like a great transformation that happened under this dog, because he was just moving around with a lot of happiness. He can run with ears flapping and tails waving, and she saw the little figure of Tricki just in the hands of the doctor, isn't it? And it has turned into little hard muzzled animal. And as soon as our Tricki saw Mrs. Pumphrey with a lot of happiness, he also jumped from the doctor's arm and sailed into Pumphrey's lap, and he started licking her face and roaming around with great excitement, isn't it? and Mrs. Pumphrey also can't suppress her happiness. She also might have been very thankful to the doctor, and she called it a triumph of surgery, and thanking our narrator, Dr. Herriot. Have a great day. Just go through the text fully and try to understand the lesson once again. Okay, thank you.